So the short version of my vegan story is that I saw an ad for a pre-stuffed turkey that just basically, the antics in it disgusted me into going vegan overnight. The long story is, well, longer, probably about 20 minutes longer. Like, seriously, do you want salmonella on all of your vegetables? That's how you get salmonella on all of your vegetables. Hello! Welcome to another Bonus Tuesday video. Apparently I'm doing a lot of those while I still have ideas at the start of my channel. So this weekend, I put up a poll on my Instagram asking if people would rather see me do a grocery haul or see my vegan story, and more people wanted to see my vegan story, so without further ado, that's what I'll talk about today. Again, like with last week, I have notes on my computer, so if I'm looking down, that's what I'm looking at. Anyway, yes, I'm vegan. I've been vegan for almost 5 years now. I count my vegan anniversary as October 10th, 2015. I didn't go fully vegan on that date, but that's the date that my thinking pattern really shifted, and so that's what I counted as. Now, I haven't been perfect those almost 5 years, and I have had some mistakes, some slip-ups, but I have been following a vegan ethical framework for that whole time. The thing is, though, October 10th, 2015 was just sort of the inciting incident in my vegan story. The actual sort of story goes back a little bit further to sort of 2012, 2013-ish. I had graduated from university with a degree in theater, burnt out as all get out, and decided I was going to take a bit of a break from trying to do theater because it was making me anxious as anything, and I ended up working in a retail health food grocery store. Now, back in 2012, 2013, at least where I live, it was really hard to get dietary restriction-friendly pre-made specialty products anywhere other than the health food grocery stores. So working in a health food grocery meant that I learned a lot about different dietary restrictions. It also meant I had coworkers with various dietary restrictions, including a few vegans. And then in order to help customers find products that would work for them, I did then learn a lot about different sorts of dietary restrictions so I could know whether a product was going to be vegan or dairy-free or nut-free or gluten-free or what have you, and what the different sort of labels and where sort of ingredients might hide that would change that, because you would also get a lot of sort of relatives being like, I have a friend with an allergy, my son has just gone vegetarian, I just got diagnosed with celiac, right? And they'd want to help. So by that point, I probably knew more about veganism than your average non-vegan, because I knew that it was about more than just food, and I also knew several sort of hidden animal products like carmine or casein or shellac or confectioner's glaze, as it likes to call itself. I also understood that may contain, in terms of vegan products, was an allergy statement, and so a lot of vegans would still eat things that may contain. It wasn't like, say, people with celiac and it's like may contain traces of wheat or rye. Yeah, that's not gluten-free then, and that means may make you sick. Having vegan coworkers also meant I had some conversations with them about the different sort of anti-vegan arguments that they would come across. Like, I think one coworker had a family member who was like, I hate all vegan or vegetarian food or something, which already at that point I was like, that's ridiculous. You can't hate all vegan vegetarian food. You mean you've never had a PB&J? You don't eat spaghetti with red sauce? You've never had a cheese pizza? Like, you've never had French fries? In that way, I sort of by talking about how ridiculous some of these arguments were, opened myself up to a way of thinking that was more open to more plant-based diets and ways of living. Even though at the time I was very much personally of the argument that, yeah, I could probably go vegetarian if I tried really hard, but I could never go vegan. Please, I can't give up cheese. So yeah, I was that person who could never give up cheese. Which means that anytime I'm at a function or whatever and someone's like, oh, I could never go vegan because I like cheese too much, I always want to be like, yeah, so did I. Instead, you get that sort of customer service smell because I'm very passive. I'm not super confrontational, so when people make comments like that, they don't catch witty snapbacks from me. You get the, hi, yeah. So at one point working there, I think this was 2013, I worked there until mid-2014, I tried to make a New Year's resolution. I was gonna go flexitarian because I wasn't really sure I could go fully vegetarian, and vegan was off the table at that point in time. But I did like experimenting with some of the plant-based alternatives that we had in the store. So I thought, well, you know, I could maybe work towards everything I prepare for myself being vegetarian, and then if, you know, someone else makes a meal for me or whatever, then it's gonna have meat in it and I'm gonna be non-picky. That didn't last very long because 2013, 2014, you know, that was in the height of all of my other eating issues. And I used to be a really picky eater, especially when it came to like vegetables, and I didn't like beans or lentils or any sort of legumes other than peanuts very much. So it was like there was 2 vegetables that I ate and like no other plant-based protein sources unless it was super processed. So I was like, oh, that wouldn't work, because if I wanted to go flexitarian, I'd be a junk food flexitarian. And so it didn't really last. But it was something that was on my mind. And I think a lot of why it was on my mind is because I thought that it aligned pretty well with a lot of my values. I talked a lot, I've talked some at least, about self-compassion and how that's what I need to do in order to make everything sustainable, and just in general sort of compassion and kindness and trying to reduce the amount of harm I do to myself and to others has been something I've really valued. I have put it into practice in varying amounts of success, but I have been sort of focused on that and on trying to find what ways to live that are sort of the most helpful to the world around me rather than harmful, ever since I was in my teens. So the idea of eating less animal products just seemed to align with a lot of my interests, even if I wasn't really quite ready to be able to put it into practice because of other things that I had going on in terms of issues with food and that sort of stuff. So I had that as a sort of a long-term, far-off goal to try and, you know, eventually be able to go more plant-based, sort of flexitarian-ish. And then in late 2014, early 2015, when I started getting more control over my eating and eating more nutritiously and having less issues with binge eating and really focusing on eating for health, both mental and physical, I had a lot of success at that point with getting rid of certain food aversions that I had had up until that point. I had had success with broccoli, which is surprising because growing up for the longest time, even into adulthood, broccoli literally used to make me gag, no matter how it was cooked. And now I still not really a fan of raw broccoli. If someone puts raw broccoli in front of me and they're like, that's your vegetable option, I will not be happy because, but broccoli cooked, whether it's roasted or steamed or what have you, is one of my favorite vegetables now. And I had experienced snap peas, and I tried celery, and I was having a lot of success with broadening my taste buds, and so I decided I was going to try beans. I had some success and some failures, but eventually I got over my texture aversion to at least smaller beans up to the size of like a navy bean. I still haven't really tried kidney beans. They are a little intimidating to me. But because of that success that I was having with broadening my food palette, I was like, okay, well now I like some more nutritious, highly nutrient dense, plant-based foods and plant-based proteins, so I'm gonna try and experiment with this sort of stuff. So I experimented with a lot of like vegetarian chilies and tofu scrambles. I think I tried a curry recipe or two. I tried to replace tuna salad with chickpea salad. That failed miserably on my first go, and I kind of didn't try chickpeas again for a little while. But I was experimenting with a lot of, you know, meatless at least. I was still eating a ton of dairy. I experimented with cooking meatless casseroles for my parents because, like I mentioned in my video last week, I was doing a lot of cooking for my parents at that time. And so I was experimenting with like, where could I drop meat and still have all of the nutrients, and what did I like? And it was going really well. I remember also towards the start of that whole journey that I had in 2015 with health and nutrition, reading a post on Reddit where someone was having an argument with a vegan Redditor. I don't know who it was. I can't remember any usernames. But they were talking about how, you know, harvesting plants still kills animals and the vegan diet isn't perfect and all this sort of stuff, so why try? And this other Redditor who is vegan said something that I have kind of never forgotten, and it was like, well, you can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And that was the first time I had ever heard that philosophy. And like, that basically changed my viewpoint on so many things, right? That really helped in the moment of being early on in my journey of nutrients, really shift my thought process about it. It helped me shift my thought process about so many things. So in a way, I kind of had that memory in the back of my mind, also adding to my like opinion on veganism, that I was like, yeah, but you know, I can't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, so I'll do what I can, right? And in a way, I have veganism to thank for a lot of progress that I have made mentally and emotionally over the years, because that is really like a philosophy that I still ascribe to. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So then we get to October 10th, 2015. I was on my computer scrolling through Facebook. It was the day before Thanksgiving. Now, I'm in Canada, so Thanksgiving is in October here. And someone had shared an ad onto their Facebook timeline for this pre-stuffed oven-ready turkey. And in it, there's this woman, and she's trying to get her turkey out of the sink from where she's had it thawing so that she can start stuffing it to cook it for Thanksgiving. But firstly, she had this turkey in the sink, completely unwrapped, with water just straight on it. So of course it's slippery, it's slimy, it's gross. And I was food safety certified as part of working at the health food grocery store, so my food safety certified brain went, no, that's so wrong. Why are you doing that? You're ridiculous. This is disgusting. Like, seriously, do you want salmonella on all of your vegetables? That's how you get salmonella, on all of your vegetables. Anyway, she has all her antics trying to get this turkey out of the sink, and she fails, and I think it ended up falling on the floor or something, and then it says, there has to be a better way, and it cuts to the pre-stuffed oven-ready turkey, and my brain goes, well, that's not really a better way. The better way would just be buying a tofurkey roast. Like, come on. This oven-ready turkey, you still have to thaw it if you bought it too far in advance and had to freeze it. Like, no. Which then, my next thought is, wow, when did I start thinking like a vegetarian? So at that moment of realization is when I decided, okay, I'm gonna try not eating meat anymore. At least anything that I cook just for myself, I will not eat meat. If I'm cooking for a bunch of other people and I can't figure out alternatives, then I might eat what I'm cooking for other people, but I'm just, for right now, I'm not eating meat if I have just prepared it for myself. I am going on this whole lower meat thing a lot harder than I had been. I managed to find some sort of relatively easy alternative pretty much every day that following week, except for one day where I was making these like tuna and bread roll-up things. and I couldn't really figure out a way to make it without tuna for myself or to put something else on it, so I just ate it. And it was funny because after like 5 days of not eating any meat, even though tuna's fish, so it's not like other meats, and some people don't think it's meat and what have you, after like 5 days or a week or whatever of not eating any meat, just the mouthfeel of the tuna was like super gross to me, and it was like I had developed a new texture aversion to the texture of meat. Got over all my plant texture aversions and then built up a bunch of animal product texture aversions. During that week, though, I also did more research into vegetarianism and all these plant-based ways of living, because I was looking for recipes and I was looking in communities and seeing what advice people had. And at that point I realized that, hey, if I was giving up meat, and if it was at least partly for ethics reasons, well, I may as well give up eggs too anyways, because eggs, I never liked eggs as a kid, and then I went through a period of really liking eggs, and then I went very quickly from that to a period of eggs making me sick. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just gonna give up eggs too, because then I only eat them baked into things anyways because I can't handle them, so no eggs. But then I looked into connections between the dairy industry and the veal industry, and a lot of issues in very concentrated and large dairy farms, and the same issues you come into in large beef farms. And so I was like, well, I can't really say I'm ethically giving up meat and not ethically give up dairy too. At least that's how my personal ethics went. And so within a week I had basically decided I wasn't buying any more animal products for myself. I was going to go vegan. I still had some food with dairy in it and some dairy products, and I was going to finish those up, but after that it was going to be fully vegan. I don't remember what day was my first day of being fully vegan, which is why I count October 10th as my vegan anniversary, because that's when the mindset shifted. Even though that's not when the diet itself had fully transitioned over. I have said that for me, ethically, it made sense for me to also give up dairy, and health-wise, physically, it made sense to also give up eggs. Really, if I want to boil down the reason that I specifically went vegan very succinctly, it boils down to the fact that that's a really easy sort of distinction to choose. I am a little bit of a lazy person, which might surprise some people because I tend to have a bit of a reputation for being very hardworking, but I'm also, lazy. Sometimes I like to choose the path of least resistance. And for me, to think through what all I think is ethical to eat and what's not, what's ethical to consume and what's not, it was just so much easier for me to have a line to say, no animal products. I'm not going to make any exceptions because it's just easier to stick to, easier to understand. And that was initially why I chose vegan, because I was like, I could go vegetarian, I could draw the line somewhere else, but it's just an easier line to say no animal products. This, understandably, kind of freaked my parents out, because when I first told them I wanted to go vegetarian, it was kind of like, I'm just giving up meat, not like dairy or whatever. And then within a week I was like, no, I think I want to go vegan. Now, in terms of what kind of vegan I am, I have tried a few times to go very sort of whole foods, plant-based, no oil, but that way mentally for me is never been sustainable, because it's just too restrictive. And you say, well, you're a vegan, and you're going to say that whole foods vegan is too restrictive but regular vegan isn't. And no, for me it's not, because just like I said, no animal products, easy line to draw, easy thing for me to follow. Mentally it's like, okay, well, to me animal products aren't food, so I don't feel restricted when I don't eat them. But when I have to restrict further within that, then I'm getting out of the whole don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good mindset, and I'm getting into an all or nothing mindset again. And anytime I have tried to go really gung-ho, whole foods, plant-based, no oil, I have ended up falling back into binging big time. So I don't do that. What I do, at least what I am doing right now, and my overall philosophy on the best way for me personally to eat vegan is to, yes, try and get most of my nutrients and calories from more unrefined and whole food sources, but not to say I can't have oil, I can't have Miyoko's vegan butter, I can't have vegan ice cream, I can't have vegan pizza. I have to allow myself to be able to have those things within moderation so that my mindset can stay in that sort of permissive and moderate space without falling into a very all or nothing, it's this, and if I fail, then I may as well give up completely mentality. So for me personally, the most sustainable version of the vegan diet is to put a focus mostly on homemade and less refined foods, but not to shy away from more refined foods if, you know, I'm having a rough day, or if I have something to celebrate, or if I just want them, right? I will have them sometimes. Some days I may eat mostly them. A few weeks ago when I just started tracking, I had pizza like 4 days in a row from 2 different places because of just how that week worked out, and it was like I didn't feel any guilt or feel bad for having pizza because it fit my overall nutrition goals, and it was great. So that's how I went vegan, what kind of vegan I am, and as for why I've stayed vegan, I've touched on how it just sort of aligns with a lot of my broader values, how it is an easy sort of distinction to make in terms of eating alongside my values. I've talked about how now, after almost 5 years vegan, I just don't really personally view animal products as food anymore. Like, I know it is food for most people, but for me, I'm like, look at some meat, I'm like, oh, that's meat, right? It's not food, it's meat. And also, I just find my veganism to personally be pretty important to me as a person, because it is something that I do that aligns with my values and my priorities. Now, one of my main regrets in all of my time being vegan is that I have in the past sort of tried to downplay how important my veganism is to me personally, to other people, because I'm afraid of becoming that sort of preachy vegan or putting people off or whatever. I don't want to be a preachy vegan. I don't really want to be a preachy anything, to be honest. I grew up in an evangelical church, and that whole experience has made me be like, I don't want to be a preachy anything. That's, it's a little traumatic. I am still a Christian, but I don't want to be preachy about that or veganism or anything else. I just want to share my experience in a way that hopefully people can maybe relate to, or at least learn more about me from, but I don't want to be like seen as being pushy, which in some ways has led to me downplaying the importance of my veganism, because along with not really want to come across as preachy or pushy, I have this bad habit that I have sort of really realized that I have within the past couple weeks of trying to change how I portray myself, or even like who I am, in order to be more acceptable to what I think other people want me to be. And that's something I need to work on. I would rather just be myself, be able to say, this is who I am, this is how I am, this is how I think, this is what I'm like, and if you don't like it, that's okay. I'm not for everybody. But I think, and that's part of this journey, is like learning to be me and to be unapologetically me, and hopefully through that I can have any sort of relationships I have be much more genuine, because they're not based in me trying to be what I think other people want me to be. They're based in me just being me. And so that's part of why when I put up the Instagram poll in the first place, I put this vegan story as an option, because I had been debating, well, it's just like not really mention that I'm vegan. I'm talking about my wellness, and I'll talk about generics, but I'm not going to talk about being vegan because I don't want to be one of those vegans. but I really think that it's important for me to talk about the things that are important parts of myself. So this was my vegan story. My camera died. Or I had been recording for too long and it was like, no, half an hour is as long as you can record. I don't know. Anyways, so let me know in the comments if you have any other questions about my vegan story or veganism in general or my nutrition philosophy in general or whatever you want. Let me know whether you have a don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good moment, if that's a philosophy that has ever resonated with you. I'd love to hear about it. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you want to stick around and hear more about my health journey and what I find important to me and how I'm doing from week to week, I would love it if you subscribed. And I will be back with another video on Friday with my 3 weeks in update. Hopefully everything is good news. And if you want to see more frequent updates sort of on a day-to-day basis of what I'm doing and what I'm eating and how things are going, you can always follow my Instagram, d.wellness.journey, and that will be linked in the description as well. Thanks for watching!